Rear-wheel drive is for sports cars. Rear-wheel drive vehicles are difficult to drive on snow and ice. There are many cliches. Almost 70% of new vehicles are sold with front-wheel drive. Around 20% have all-wheel drive and only 10% have rear drive. And yet Volvo will switch back to rear-wheel drive for its electric compact SUVs with single engines in 2024.
Rear-wheel drive is suited for electric vehicles because, in contrast to combustion engines, the weight distribution is different due to the lower lying and heavy battery. In addition, electric motors can be controlled much better than combustion engines, and with further development of driving stability systems, this is now much better, so that rear-wheel driven are at least as stable to drive as front-wheel drive ones.
New technology and the vehicle architecture of electric cars make this possible. After a quarter of a century, Volvo engineers are turning the tables on the drive system again. The Volvo 960 was, in 1996, the last family station wagon with rear-wheel drive. What was once considered difficult to drive is now possible again. For those who prefer to have all wheels driven, Volvo has the twin-motor 40 series electric vehicles. For our check, we drive the XC40 with a single motor on the rear axle in the extended range version with more range. We are interested in how well the rear-wheel drive works, and it's the cheaper vehicle, available from €53,000. The second engine costs another €7,000 extra. A lot of money for a compact SUV, but it's not just the driven axle that has changed. The main innovations of the 40s Volvos are under the sheet metal, more range, but also more power, and now rear-wheel drive again after 25 years. That's an exciting question as to why that's changed in the setup, and we want to find out on our road trip whether the range is realistic, whether the consumption is achievable, and how that relates to rear-wheel drive and the increased power, and whether there is charging infrastructure in the countryside, or whether we are in a fix there. In order to put the new technology of the rear-wheel drive 2024 model through its paces, we drive the single-engine XC40 from Salzburg in Austria to the Rossfeld Panorama Road 50 kilometers away. Before the start of our short trip, we reset the trip odometer. The name is long and cryptic. In short, this means an XC40 with an electric motor on the rear axle and a 79 kilowatt-hour battery. Its consumption, stated by the manufacturer as 16.6 kilowatt-hours. Volvo claims to have improved the range by almost 100 kilometers to 570. Adjustments were made on several fronts for greater efficiency.
There are essentially four aspects that we have worked on. Firstly, the vehicle itself is a bit cheaper. Aerodynamic fine-tuning, among other things. Then the battery is 5% larger, which increases the range accordingly. And we have done a lot in the drivetrain. We changed the architecture and used a new type of inverter with silicon carbide circuit breakers, which also brings about 5% more efficiency than the old type.
Visually, it is unchanged. A new rim design ensures better aerodynamics, and two new colours, Cloud Blue and Vapor Grey, expand the extras list for €790. Mercedes offers an alternative to the Volvo XC40 with the EQA. The 250 Plus is the front-wheel drive competition to our road trip XC40. With 70.5 kilowatt hours, it has a slightly smaller battery than the Volvo. With 560 kilometers, its range is only slightly less than that of the Swede. In terms of price, the Benz is around 1,000 euros less than the Volvo at just over 52,000 euros. With a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery and 229 horsepower, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, with its angular design, is in a similar league to the EQA and the XC40. Its range is stated to be 507 kilometers. The price, just under 55,000 euros, 2,000 more than the Volvo. Worldwide bestseller, Tesla's Model Y. As a maximum range version, the vehicle should travel 533 kilometers and cost 55,000 euros with a 75 kilowatt-hour battery, like the Ioniq 5 in Germany. With a range of 507 kilometers, the Ioniq 5 is at the bottom, while the Volvo has the longest range on paper. Apart from the basic EQA, the other competitors are priced higher than the electric XC40.
The
Volvo XC40 and C40 of the 2024 model year are not really new visually. There are two new colours and new rims, but under the sheet metal, the technology has changed fundamentally. We have a completely new engine, and that has more power, 252 horsepower, and is now located on the rear axle. And the exciting question, does it keep what it promises? We reach mountainous terrain on our road trip. What does the journey on the 1,570-metre high pass mean for the consumption of the two-tonner? Now we're pushing the Volvo up this mountain to the Rosfeld panorama section. And of course, consumption is now increasing massively here. We now have almost 30 kilowatt hours of electricity here. The single motor offers plenty of propulsion despite gradients of up to 13%. It's dynamic, but is it also economical despite its 2 tons? What a view! Now we've reached the top and we're taking a look at the exact consumption. But first, we're enjoying the panorama here. What a beautiful mountain panorama. It's worth driving here. Amazing. So a look at the trip odometer. We have around 50 kilometers and a consumption of almost 30 kilowatt hours of electricity. But the exciting question will be, how much of this can we recover on the journey downhill? What a disadvantage is uphill, high weight turns into an advantage downhill. The mass pushes and the recuperation brake can recover up to 100 kilowatts of energy. After just a short time, consumption looks completely different. Now we have around 70 kilometers and we have 310 kilometers remaining range, which means we have recovered a good number of kilometers. Wow! I'm really positively surprised that we were able to gain so much back in such a short distance. To tell you the truth, I would never have thought that we could do that and reduce consumption from just under 30 kilowatt hours to a good 17. And this brings us close to what the manufacturer promised. Anyone who needs to charge on the go needs a comprehensive infrastructure. This is still the major shortcoming of electromobility today. We check the distribution of available charging stations using Volvo's search function. However, I am now interested here on the Rosfeld Panorama Road. If I had to charge, where would the next station be? And there is a wonderful button here that I can tap once, and then the system shows me the next available charging station. Now I take the first Ionity. I recognize that, but I can see that we would have to drive 36 minutes to get there. In the direction of Salzburg there are some, of course, but the next Ionity charger, that's pretty stupid. That's 36 minutes there and then back, and then also charging. That's taking up a lot of time from the day. Here in the countryside, they are of course still sparse, but on the main routes and in the cities, it is of course much better. The electric filling station network in rural areas still leaves a lot to be desired. In order to be attractive, the vehicles must offer large batteries and use the charged energy economically. Can the XC40 score points here? We drove 100 kilometers and the remaining range has also decreased by 100 kilometers. The measuring method seems to be realistic, but as far as the total range is concerned, I'm not completely satisfied yet. The total range is only around 400 kilometers of the promised 570. This can have various causes: cold temperatures, individual driving style, or other factors. But the consumption and energy recovery downhill are convincing. We asked ourselves 4 questions at the beginning of our road trip. As far as consumption is concerned, that's a positive surprise for me. We're close to what the manufacturer promises, and the surprise is recuperation. How quickly you can get the energy back. The downside is the infrastructure, but it's fair to say that Volvo can't do anything about that. But that's a shame, because it hurts those new to e-mobility if they have to put in extra effort. As far as rear-wheel drive is concerned, that's one of the positive surprises for me, where you first think, what were they thinking? But it's a lot of fun to throw this car into the curves and notice with your power foot that something's going on back there. It wants to oversteer a little bit. That's really fun. That gives the car a sportiness, which I think is really great, and which you wouldn't expect from a Volvo. That was good for the car. The technical update. More power, rear-wheel drive, more range. That's a good way to make the car even more attractive. Before electric cars can fully replace combustion engines, further improvements are required, especially in terms of infrastructure.